Welcome to Engineering Influence podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, coming to you from our 2025 Fall Conference in beautiful sunny San Diego. And we're rounding out our general session programming today, all about inspiration, all about getting some spark to go and lead our businesses and our personal lives with a little bit more vigor. And a good way to end it was with a fantastic keynote by four-time Olympian, Chaunté Lowe. Also, a great storyteller.
Thank you.
And really just, I think a lot of what you said resonated with the audience extremely well. It's a story, I'll tell you, it's a story. I not only four-time Olympian, also breast cancer survivor.
Yes.
Hits close to home. My mother and sister-in-law are, one sister-in-law is going through treatment now.
Wow.
So thankfully successfully.
Good.
But that's a life-changing thing, and the whole idea that you would actually train for your fifth Olympics during, after treatment, that's amazing. Let's kind of take it back though. First off, I think you weren't alone when FloJo was in the Olympics. That was a spark for a lot of people to say, I can do this. What made you think, okay, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to pursue?
Yeah, well, I had a couple things. You know, when I was 4, I was inspired to become an Olympian because I watched FloJo, and she was such an incredible presence. Like when you see her for the first time, you realize there's no one else you've ever seen in the world that is like her. So she had this bold, beautiful, thick hair. She wore 3-inch nails that were painted after the American flag or whatever outfit that she was wearing. But she dominated with so much excellence. And so at the age of 4, I did have a couple of goals. I wanted to marry Michael Jackson, become an astronaut, a model, and a doctor, and become an Olympian. So I did a couple of those things, modeled a little bit, and became an Olympian. But the reality is that you never know where the inspiration is going to come from. Yeah. And a lot of times when you feel that inspiration, you have to have the boldness to act on it. And so even though I share the story about immediately seeing FloJo and then going outside and running around the parking lot, when I was a child, I didn't understand that was putting that vision into action. And I think that that vision was burned into my consciousness. It was like I could never see myself doing anything else.
Yeah, the high jump has always been something which has been, in my mind, mysterious. Do you still remember your first jump that you've done? It's just the mechanics of it. It's got to be so unnatural that first time.
100%, because your body wants to protect yourself. Yeah. And so, if you do a backflip, you're your body's telling you stop, don't go this way, you're gonna hurt yourself. And so you have to overcome that mental barrier. And I think that when I was younger, I mentioned earlier, I grew up on the Ninja Turtles and seeing the martial arts and the karate and the backflipping. So I always thought that was cool. And even as a child, I would always have dreams of flying. And I felt like out of all of the events in track and field, high jump was the closest to flying. And so I just fell in love with it once I discovered what it is.
But at the same time, track and field is a lot of times seen as an individual sport. Yeah. But then you also told a story of having to pitch in and run relay when your team needed it. Yeah. And I thought about that. I'm like, that's a good example for life, that we're all running our own races individually, but then when you need to, you got to collectively come together.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times, especially, we come to this amazing place. We have wonderful sponsors and fellows and students and wonderful engineers that have their own practices or own businesses. And a lot of times we can see each other as competitors. But when you're coming together, you're understanding that the challenges that you might be facing are the same challenges they might be facing. Yeah. And when we don't take the time to collaborate and come together in kind of like a think tank type situation, you might be dealing with something that somebody else already found the answer to a year or two before. So when you see your industry or your core work as a collective group effort, and you figure out how you guys can sharpen one another in your skill sets, you'll end up getting to the goal faster, whatever the goal is.
Yeah, it's iron sharpens iron.
Sharpens iron.
And also, I think a good theme in the keynote, which I think resonated with me, was the whole idea of getting comfortable in discomfort. Yeah. Which a lot of people avoid. Yeah. But there is, I don't know. It's a weird feeling when you're uncomfortable and you don't look at it as discomfort, but as an opportunity.
Yes.
That mindset. I kind of explained that a little bit, how you approach that, of being in an uncomfortable place, but using that not as a opportunity to get fearful, but look for opportunities to improve.
I love that. And, one of the things that I used to say, step outside of your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. But when you imagine that metaphorically, you see a itty bitsy tiny step, but the majority of you is in comfort while just one part of you is outside of comfort. And I think that the times that we grow the most is when our whole entire being, our process is outside of that comfort. Yeah. And then it seems like your capacity for what's uncomfortable does increase over time. And so a great example of that is, I believe that, the high jump, the pole vault, I think those two events are the only two that always end in a failure. Yeah. So as the bar gets higher, you keep going until the bar wins. Exactly. And if you're a person who loves to win, it's very uncomfortable losing. But at the end of that loss, you go back, you watch the film, you collaborate with your coaches, you talk to your, people who might be on your team, and you get a game plan together to go back to the drawing board and increase your capacity to be able to jump higher next time. And I realized every single day was about being uncomfortable, facing my failures. Like, I'm a winner. I love to win, but part of winning, loss is a huge part of winning. Yeah. And you have to stop being afraid of the loss. And I remember it was actually in high school where I developed this mindset, because I would run at practice, and my coach had a diabolical way of making the worst and hardest workouts every single day. I feel like he was like an evil genius with making these hard workouts. And sometimes the mental anguish of going through the workout was harder than the workout. So one day I remember we had this very hard, grueling workout. I mentally psyched myself out, so I didn't kind of compete to the best of my ability. And then I went home about 6 o'clock that evening, and I was like, wow, I'm fully recovered. Man, I could have went harder. Yeah. And I realized that the fear of the workout was actually what was holding me back. And so when I decided to confront it head on, like, okay, I'm going to be tired. It's going to hurt, but I will be better by 6 p.m. Yeah. It allowed me to increase my capacity for what I could handle. It's embracing that, knowing that going into it and saying, well, you don't really think about it. You're going to be better off after it. Yeah. But it's that willingness to actually embrace it. Yeah. And go through it and realize what you're capable of. And it's that test that, professionally and personally, a lot of people are just, it's a wall of anxiety that you have to break past. It is, but once you go through it, it makes it so much easier. And I've noticed, like, even with my own daughter, she kind of came up through the middle school time period where they were going through COVID. And there's a lot of anxiety when it comes to talking to people. Yeah. But when she's getting recruited for volleyball now, and she wants me to talk to the coaches, and I just sit back and I'm like, I have to force her out of her comfort zone. Yeah. And I think that will ultimately benefit her. And a lot of times we have to do that on purpose. You got to fly without the net. We got to fly without the net. And see what happens, And the worst case scenario, you do it better next time. And it's true. You learn from it. Either you're gonna win or you're gonna learn. You golded every single Olympic trial. Yep. And then you had 4 Olympics, and you went into the fact that your last games, right, was the one that. How many years later did you realize that the people who competed and came in, were actually cheating? Yeah, it was 8 years later. So after the 2008 Olympics, 8 years after that, in 2016, after I had lost my 4th Olympics, is when I found out that 3 people who placed in front of me cheated. Yeah, which goes into the whole idea of integrity. It comes with a cost, but everything comes out. It does work out the way it should. Yeah. And I think once again, I was terrified of what it would mean to embarrass my family, embarrass, the people who look up to me, to take something that I've worked so hard for, to have it taken and stripped from me. And so, I believe that it does take an entire lifetime to build a good name. And then that one misstep, that one thing, you could lose it all. Yeah. And for me, the cost was too high. So never once did I even consider cheating. But, it is hard when you see everyone else taking shortcuts, and it seems like, they're not doing the right thing, but they're getting ahead. But eventually it does catch up. Yeah. And it's devastating. Yeah, my wife has a very black and white sense of good and bad. I like that. And even though
she gets frustrated at times because she doesn't like people taking shortcuts. She doesn't like people doing things the easy way.
Yeah.
And she's like, why? He says, it's the rule. You should follow the rules.
Yeah.
It's rough, but that is how things work.
It's true.
And I'm like, it is, especially living in Washington.
Yeah.
That's a real hard way of being.
Really?
It's just, it's DC. It's just how people are.
Yeah.
And it's hard, but I'm like, I keep on telling her, I'm like, that is how you should be. I'm like, it's not easy and it's rough, but it's your help is like your small contribution is making it better in a way, and that it also goes with the whole idea of like what success is, and you touched on this. It's redefining your own success. That the idea that after 4 Olympic Games, if you didn't medal in the games, then people would say, well, okay, well, you lost the games. But then you have to look, how many people get to the Olympics? 4 times.
Yeah.
And that's success in its own right.
And that's what I had to understand. It's like, even when I was young and I had the inspiration of going to the Olympics, I'm watching FloJo and I'm like, I want to go there. My goal wasn't, I want to go and be a gold medalist. And along the way, yes, that changed slightly, but it mostly changed because I allowed other people to tell me, well, if you didn't get that medal, you're a failure.
Yeah.
And so every single achievement and accomplishment up to that point would have felt like a failure. There were some world championships along the way. There were 3 births that happened in that time period. There were records that were broken. Up to this day, no other woman in American history has ever jumped higher than me. I've had a couple of number 1 and number 2 world ranks.
Yeah.
And in that process, I was allowing other people to tell me that if I didn't have a medal around my neck, I was a failure. And I realized that would tear me apart. That would, it would completely dismantle every single lesson. Every time I got knocked down and got back up, it would make me throw it away and consider it as trash. And I realized I wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's really important for us in our everyday lives, not just for athletic accomplishments, but for what we want to accomplish in our lives. We have to assign value to things according to our own matrix.
Yeah, and I think that you touched on it near the end about how social media, we have this world around us where what we're presented with is a curated, wonderful life of everyone.
Yes.
Right? That is, a lot of it is show, but then we value ourselves and we measure ourselves against what we're seeing other people present.
Yeah.
And we're allowing them to define what success looks like.
Yeah.
And especially for younger generations who are digital natives. I mean, I'm so glad I don't have digital cameras where disposable cameras were around for me in college. I don't have a footprint, but these people have it in their whole lives. And it really is a question of proactively defining your own success.
Absolutely. And I think, when I first became a parent, I was very much under the belief that there's nothing new under the sun. How I grew up as a child is how I should parent my children, not understanding the pressure dynamic of having people with AI filters on their face that have perfectly manicured hands and nails and smoothed out beautiful features in their face that are not real. And so they're measuring themselves to that standard that they could never live up to. And I realized that you have to build your self-worth from the inside. And so I started focusing and understanding, I think the concept came from like parenting my children. It's like, I have to build up your internal self-worth. But as adults, we're also facing the same thing. You see the person from college with the jet ski and the boat and the model wife and they're sitting courtside of not only the NBA finals, but the Super Bowl. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Well, you don't see the debt and you don't see the fact that they can't, afford to pay their bills, but they have that thing going
You don't
on.
see the repossessions. You don't just see them crying at night. You don't see when they're awake. And when you get closer, that's when you're able to see that. But a lot of us, we're comparing our whole lives, our career to somebody else's timeline.
Yeah.
And the reality is, if we kind of stay in our own lane and stay on our path, as long as your lane has a goal assigned to it and a proven plan, then yes, stay in your lane. And so I had to stop allowing other people's, I guess, their own path start affecting my own.
Yeah.
And I think that I felt empowered when I did that. And that's why it's so important for me to bring that to the stage, because I've noticed a lot of people are struggling with that same thing.
A lot of people are. And I think it goes back to really, as a high jumper, as an individual competitor, it is that kind of reset and say, but I define my own success. I define what I can do. You also, of course, a large part of your story is surviving breast cancer, being and how you also trained for your fifth Olympics shortly after after treatment. How did that approach, that switch flipped to say I can try this again and I can get a message out there? I mean, talk a little bit about how that's defined your journey.
Yeah, so, when it comes to my goals and my process and what I'm going to do, yes, I very much want to stay in my same lane. But when it comes to compassion and empathy and how I want to show up in the world for other people, I think it's very important to look at other people, to see where you could help or add value and benefit other people's lives. And so what really stung me was that I had shared the statistic that 1 in 8 women in their lifetime in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer, but I had no feeling or emotion or empathy attached to it. And so it wasn't until I was directly affected with cancer that I understood the error in how I was living my life. And every single person was no longer a number, but they were a living, breathing being that had a life and had people that they loved and cared about. And I thought that it was so important for me to do something with my life to honor them.
Absolutely. And bringing that, using your platform, the ability, to bring that up to so many people, 372 million, I think is the number you brought up. That hitting them and reaching out and getting that. Hopefully, it helps not only early detection, but then also to reduce the mortality rate for something that is just terrible.
Yeah, like I love the idea of being able to bring awareness to fund research, finding ways for people to be vigilant and taking care of their own body, showing them what to look for, but also empowering those who might be treated or those who are living with stage 4 cancer, just to be encouraged that there still is hope.
Yeah, I think you ended the keynote with a really good message for the people in here, because one of the funny things that we always talk about is the fact that the joke is that an introverted engineer looks at his own shoes and an extroverted engineer looks at the other person's shoes. They're very humble people who don't talk about things, and generally the work that they do, you only hear about if something goes wrong.
Yes,
right?
It's true.
And the way you put it was like, everything that you do is going to come out.
Yes.
People will realize the value, and I think that really resonated, because it's that yes, acknowledging, yes, we see you for what you do.
Yes.
Right?
And I think a lot of times it's not necessarily tooting your own horn, but it's understanding the value of what you bring to the world. It's assigning meaning to the work. So when things get hard, when challenges come, when change seems too unbearable to continue to move forward, you see the value that you bring and you say, there's nothing else that I can do because the world needs me. Yeah. And as I was preparing for this keynote today, I was thinking about, I never once had to think, wow, are the roads going to be safe for me to get to training? Is this bridge going to collapse on me? I didn't have to think about those things.
Or the stadiums you compete in.
Or never once.
Yeah.
Never once did
It's a given that it's just going to be there. You're just going to show up and everything's going to work.
It's going to be great. And so I wanted them to really understand that, those 372 million people that were reached, this is just one story. Yeah. But the work that they do has a ripple effect that brings so much good into the world. And it's okay to, pat yourself in the back, toot your horn a little bit. We don't want a whole bunch of conceited engineers running around here, but at the same time, you guys deserve it because the work that you do is so valuable, so needed, and we need you. So yeah.
So what's the next chapter in the story?
I don't know. I think that the next chapter in the story is to actually write the story. And I think that, I do have the children's book that is out. It's great for young adults or adults that really want an inspirational story. So a lot of the stories I shared are in there. But I think that it's really important to give people a tool set that they could take home. I think that you get the inspiration, you take the notes, but I would like people to have a part of these tools with them. And it's, for me, it's kind of funny because my husband's like, do you want to make, I was like, I don't even care it's not about making money, I don't care. I think that all the hardships that I went through, all the lessons that I've learned will benefit somebody else. And so if somebody's struggling or feeling like giving up or facing homelessness or domestic violence or, a cancer diagnosis, uncertainty, anxiety, fear, I want them to be able to have that tool set to be able to keep going.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing how that comes out. And I really appreciate your time. Coming off a great keynote, and audience loved it. Thank you so much.
And I just want to say, what you told me about your wife, I think we'd be good friends too. So
yeah, I think so. And again, this has been great. This has been Engineering Influence podcast for the American Council of Engineering Companies, and we'll see you next time.